All right, so we're going to take a look here at the more trig equations. This is lesson 2-4. And we've been working in radians and degrees separately, and now we're going to go back to both. Okay, so find values of theta that satisfy the equations for 0 degrees to 360 degrees and from 0 to 2 pi. Do not use a calculator. Okay, so we're not going to come over here and touch the calculator at all. We're just going to try and answer these questions with what we know. All right, so square root of 3 over 2, we've seen a few dozen times now. That comes when our cosine, right, our x value is square root of 3, and that happens at 30 degrees. So we know for cosine of theta being square root of 3 over 2, the alpha is 30 degrees, which is also pi over 6. Okay. Then it says tangent has to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so basically saying tangent has to be positive. We know that happens in the first and the fourth quadrant. Okay, cosine is negative in the second and third quadrant. So we have both of these happening down here in the third quadrant. So the only possibility is for us to be in the third quadrant to satisfy both of these conditions. Okay, so in the third quadrant, right, we go from 180 degrees and we're adding 30 degrees to it, which would be 210 degrees. Or we're starting at pi and we're adding pi over 6, which gives us 7 pi over 6, which means our theta is 210 degrees or 7 pi over 6. Okay, let's try another one. Sine of theta equals 0 and cosine of theta equals -1. Okay, so for sine to equal 0, we know that's got to happen at the quadrantal, and that's our y value being 0, and that happens here and here. Okay, and then it says cosine theta has to be -1, so our x value has to be -1. So we're right here. That's the only place that that's going to happen. Okay, so even though sine theta could have been 0 degrees, 180 degrees, and 360 degrees, right? Or 0, pi, and 2 pi, because cosine theta is -1, only where x is -1, that can only be here at 180 and pi. Okay, so theta equals 180 degrees or pi. Okay, let's check out another one. Use a calculator. All right, so we're going to use a calculator. We're in degrees. We need to make sure our calculator is set in degrees. Doc 7, 2, and we need to change from radians. Maybe you don't, but I do. Okay, and we will make that our default. Okay. All right, so secant theta equals 3.19. All right, so we're trying to find alpha, which will be the inverse of secant at 3.19. Okay. So trig, secant inverse, 3.19. Enter, and alpha is going to be 72 degrees. Okay. It says we need to be between 0 and 180 degrees, and we know that between 0 and 180 in this quadrant secant is positive, and this quadrant second quadrant secant is negative, so 72 degrees is actually our answer. Okay. P is a point on the terminal side of theta. Find theta for 0 to 360 degrees. So I'm still in degrees, no changes on my calculator necessary. So let's kind of take a picture or draw a picture of what's happening here. If we go over 5, that's our 5, down 9, lots of 9, okay, we would be here. So if it's a point on the terminal side, then our angle's coming out. Okay. So we have the idea that this is a 5, this is -9. That's our x value, and that's our y value. Okay. Now I could go ahead and calculate r, but they're not asking for r. They want to know what theta is, which is this angle here, right? What's that? Okay, so well, I know by taking the inverse of my trig functions, I can always find theta. So let's kind of think about what we've got here. We've got an x and a y, and tangent happens to be the ratio of y over x. So the tangent of this particular theta will be -9 over 5. So the inverse would be of 9/5. Okay, so now this is where our calculator comes in handy. So we do our trig, tangent inverse, 9 divided by 5. And we get, looks like 60.9. Okay, so that's going to be 61 degrees. Okay, but we know that's not our answer because 61 degrees would be in the first quadrant. So since we're starting here and coming back with 61 degrees, we will do 360 degrees minus 61 degrees. So 360 minus 61 gives us 299 degrees. So theta is 299 degrees. Whoops, I've been a little trouble there. There we go. All right, so we're just pulling it all together now using all the different things that we've learned about trig functions.